Hello.
Hello.
We're John and Elizabeth, and this is Oliver. Oliver is joining us for
Our last leg.
our very last leg, and we're just gently making our way into Portsmouth Harbour. I hope you enjoy this episode.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for watching. Our very tranquil evening in Studland Bay was somewhat spoiled when just after we departed we needed to be towed back in, or rather we accepted a tow back in.
You would expect on a lovely morning like this. We are being towed back into Studland Bay by some very kind people.
Yeah, very.
As we have a problem with our prop.
The whole pile of orange polypropylene wrapped round it, so thick that I can't get the boat hook into it to even try and pull it free.
Oof.
Having stopped, I was just contemplating getting into the water to cut it free, and a boat came up and asked us if they could help. So we very quickly rigged a bridle on the bow. They did one on their stern. We passed them a line, and in flat, calm conditions, they towed us in. Jumped in the water. 10 minutes later it was all off and we were back underway, and at that point we met George from the Contessa Association, who took this very fine footage of us nicely motoring back in towards the Needles Channel. How does it feel to be nearly home, Elizabeth?
I'm very excited. It's mixed emotions. It's been great sailing, but it's nice also to be home.
It just so happened that was a small Contessa rally on the Beauly River, so we went along to that, treated that as our welcome home party, and then the following day we went up to the Hamble. You may remember there was a bit of a leak underneath the tow rail, so we took that off, cleaned it up with a bit of help, and then went back on again, but we could see what the problem was. But that's now repaired. In the interim, our grandson Oliver arrived. He had an opportunity to play around in the dinghy, and then we went and anchored for lunch in Solent, and then pulled into Cowes in order to sample the bright lights of Cowes and the Island Sailing Club, and then quiet night on board before we set off on the very last leg. I was having a bit of a think, and Elizabeth and I were having a bit of a chat about our route and whether we'd done the right route. We originally set out with the idea that there was no plan. The only plan was there was no plan, was the thing we famously said to people. In hindsight, I'm really pleased with the route that we took. I just wish that we had got the speeds a little bit better, maybe a little bit less fast at the beginning, maybe taken the time to go into places in the middle that we skipped because we were in a bit of a rush, and maybe we were just a bit too slow at the tail end. But just to recap the route, we left on the 2nd of April and headed pretty fast down the channel. We had good breeze. We had to stop in Falmouth for a storm, but we got to Scilly in good weather. Left Scilly in order to get to Crosshaven and did the inside of the Irish Sea, the inside of the Irish coast rather than the west coast, and headed up towards Dublin, bounced off the Isle of Man, went into Peel for a few days, maybe a tiny bit too long there, but it was useful and pleasant. Then County Antrim coast into the Clyde, hang around a couple of days in the Clyde because we needed to pick up some stuff, but then made our way around to Crinan, up through the Crinan Canal, which was very lovely indeed. Definitely one to be savoured rather than rushed. And then up Sound of Mull into Loch Sunart, which I'd never been to before, then round to Col, up into the Small Isles, Loch Moidart, fabulously pretty place, Arroseg, Maleg, and then up inside of Skye through Kyle Rea, Plockton, very good fun on a Friday night, And then some of the more remote places, so little anchorages off the mainland or Rona, then into Loch Shieldaig, up to Loch Ewe and Ullapool. Set off from Ullapool very much with a bit of a deadline in mind to get across to the Outer Hebrides. Set off for Tarbert, but ended up in Stornoway. It just made sense to do it that way. And then down the inside of the Outer Hebrides, back down to the other end of the Small Isles. And so we went to Canna, which we loved, bottom of Skye, back to Mallaig and Tobermory. I should have said went to Oban, then Mallaig and Tobermory, and then down in through Jura, Islay, Gia, before back onto the Antrim coast, down and then onto the west coast of Wales, Conwy, Carnarvon, Menai Strait, all of those very exciting things to do. Left the boat for a little while in Milford Haven, then Padstow, round Land's End and up nice and slowly up the English Channel, arriving back the day before yesterday. And I think it was a good route. I think it was a very good route. A couple of places we did twice, but that was supplies and weather driven. A number of places that I wish we had stopped in for slightly longer, and a number of places that we bypassed and should have gone into. For example, wish we'd spent a bit more time in Loch Ewe. Wish we'd gone a little bit further north than Ullapool. But as a broad structure, I would recommend that route for the size of boat and the level of skills that we were at to anybody. We are alongside, got alongside yesterday, stayed with our daughter last night and came down the boat this morning in order to tidy up, get everything out of lockers, make sure everything's dry, because we're going to be leaving the boat for a week or so while we catch up with family and whatnot. So it's been 6 months, 2,600 miles, a little bit more than that, 186 days, I think. I will do a bit of a breakdown of what money we spent, although I've got a bit of an idea. I've looked at it, I just haven't done the final numbers, but
we did it out of interest. It wasn't the deciding factor.
No.
But we're just curious to see.
Useful to know how much it actually cost. And as we were going round, we weren't deliberately running to a budget, but at the same time, we weren't being wildly extravagant.
No, I would have had champagne and smoked salmon every night. There you
go. But in terms of what do we wish we'd done more of, what do we wish we'd done less of, you feel you didn't get the clothes quite right to start with, did you? No,
it was a little bit too cold, which I then ended up having to buy clothing in Southern Ireland, which was probably unnecessary.
Whereas my feeling is I had too much. I had 2 pairs of jeans on, they needed one. I had 2 fleeces on, they needed one. So I could have done with a bit less.
And I think if you're doing regular laundry, you don't really need to take that many clothes.
Yeah, and I mean, talking about laundry, that was always a little bit, and the diversity in laundry facilities was huge. We can talk about that a little bit later. Sometimes it was really great, and sometimes it was decidedly average.
Very, very expensive.
Sometimes very expensive. But we worried a lot about fuel and gas and water, and actually we didn't really need to. We never, even though sometimes we weren't stopping for maybe 6 days, we were always good. We always had a spare gas bottle. We never got to the point where we were running on an empty one.
And also with the water, we had a 5 litre bottle as a backup.
We never broke into that. And diesel, we never really went below half a tank because we were able to grab 5 litres here and 5 litres there.
So going back to the itinerary, we could have done a little bit more of the west coast of Scotland.
Yes, we could have stayed a bit longer, gone a bit further north, filled in some of the gaps.
But the anxiety there was when you spoke to local people who were saying you don't want to get stuck here because
you do want to get stuck here, but you might get stuck here. Yeah. So in terms of food on board,
we should have had more variety.
and more local stuff.
Yes.
We got into a bit of a trap of getting in somewhere and going shopping straight away rather than
thinking about what we were going to eat
or investigating what the local options were.
Yeah.
A couple of times it worked really well where we got local seafood or local venison, and I wish we'd done more of that.
Yeah.
A couple of times we stopped in a place for one night only, and maybe we could have done a couple. I wish we'd perhaps stayed at Rona slightly longer.
Yeah, it was probably interesting, but it was, we should have done that. That's the thing about the sort of itinerary. Maybe we should have thought about that a bit more.
I wish that we had spent more time on the anchor.
Trusting in the anchor.
Trusting in the anchor is, exactly right. If it looked like there was iffy weather coming in, we tended to make a decision to go and find somewhere to sort of get alongside.
But there's plenty of places in the west coast of Scotland where you can go into a lock and be well sheltered.
Yes.
We should have done more of that.
Less so in Ireland and less so on Wales, and even the south coast is a bit iffy. But in Scotland there were lots of places where we could have avoided running for an alongside berth because there was a bit of rough weather and taken a bit more time, which would have been good.
Yeah, taking advantage of the beaches and swimming.
Yes, we didn't do much of that.
We didn't do much of that.
Other than that, the boat has been remarkably defect free. There are only a couple of tiny little things that have come up and been easy to fix.
Yeah.
A lot more gear on the boat today.
Yeah, today I was getting really frustrated. I was like, how much have we? What do we bring with us? Although we have read a phenomenal amount of books, but I try to get rid of those when we go into somewhere and go to the book swap.
Getting into books was a good thing.
Yeah.
So the only thing that remains is have a think about what we're going to do next year.
I think we should give ourselves a little bit of time. We have to move back into our house, get settled back, whether we're going to go back out to work. There's lots of decisions to be made.
Yeah.
And to say, would we do a big trip again? It's not off the cards, but we can't really make a decision at the moment.
Yeah, I think 6 months without a plan might have been a bit too long.
Yeah.
Maybe 6 months with a better plan would work, or perhaps 3 months here and 3 months there.
And I can't really say until we get back into our house, because we've rented it out, as to whether that works or not. I don't know. So this is something that we will discover in 2 weeks' time when we move back in.
Yeah. We did say that we would keep a little bit of a beauty competition going, and we've filled this out over the last couple of days and weeks. It looks a bit like this, or this is at least the method. We identify where we'd been, what sort of mooring we were on, how long we'd been there, and then we scored them out of 5. Well, high 5 is good, and the things we were marking were facilities, the quality of the food, the fish and chips where we had it, and that obviously wasn't quite everywhere, the friendliness of the people that were looking after us, and in photographability, how pretty was the place itself. And we scored those, and then we were able to basically score them, and you can then sort by the 5s and each category. And the places that came top for us, Tarbert on the Isle of Harris, very, very lovely bunch of people, very nice little marina, very small, but really did feel you were being looked after. And the same was true at Sail and Jetty. The other one, and a bit of a surprise winner for me, I think probably because of food and fish and chips, what was Padstow. It felt like a little bit of a goldfish bowl, but the team there were really helpful, and we got just about everything done that we needed to do. So those are our scores. It was a nice little method to do it, and quite a bit of fun to do it as well. I've possibly let these numbers out of the bag already, but 185 days away, 2660 nautical miles, 160 engine hours, 34 nights at anchor, 16 on various jetties, 76 higher than I'd hoped in marinas, 46 on moorings, and 13 nights at sea overnight. In terms of the money, I foolishly thought I'd be able to do this all from card transactions, but there might not be enough fidelity there. But headline number, we spent £14,000 on the trip over the 6 months. A good section of that went in berthing and food ashore, where we would be dining ashore, and indeed food on board. Some of the numbers aren't quite right. For example, fuel and gas. Those numbers look a bit low, but that's probably because I used cash in places, and you can see a cash number there up at about £1,100. Yeah, not bad, I think, however. I'm really pleased with the numbers as they stand. I think this will be the last video we do for a little while, mostly because we're going to be back in familiar stomping ground. The videos have taken a while to make.
You've enjoyed them?
I've enjoyed them very much. It's nice to put them together. It's nice to have the record. It has very much helped. I know exactly when everything happened because of the scarring effect of doing the video itself. But have very much enjoyed the comments that have been made. 99.99999% of them have been uplifting and positive, and grateful for that, and really grateful for the people who hunted us down in order to come and see us while we were on our trip.
That was absolutely brilliant.
Just
really,
brilliant.
Yeah, it was really good. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for watching.
Yes, thank you, and hopefully we'll see you very soon.
Yeah, thank you for watching. Bye-bye.
Bye.